You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
We're shipping Easter gifts with a rapid-fire round of questions. Ready?
Yes, my gift. Can you pack it?
Yep.
Ship it?
Yes.
Guarantee it?
Of course.
Oh, send gift baskets?
For sure.
Protect electronics? Dog-proof it? Return it if they hate it?
Yes, no, and yeah.
Are you the UPS store?
Hey, we have a winner!
Visit theupsstore.com/guarantee for full details. Most locations are independently owned. Product, services, prices, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Visit a store today.
Acura's all-new ADX, a compact SUV that isn't just built for one thing. It's precision crafted for everything. To escape the grind with available all-wheel drive. To go with your flow with available Google built-in.
Hey Google, turn it up.
Okay, turning up the volume. And crafted to be heard with an available Bang & Olufsen premium sound system. The all-new Acura ADX, crafted to match your energy. Acura, precision crafted performance.
Take your vibes and go, 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 go.
Google is a trademark of Google LLC.
Why was Grover Cleveland a president that had one missing term in between his two terms? The only other person now, except for Donald Trump, to have achieved that. It's because of tariffs that Grover Cleveland lost his election, and it's because of tariffs that the Republicans lost the election in 1892. We are in the midst of a trade war in America and in the world, and we are back to tariffs, the likes of which you really have to go back into history to see. So, I could say we're in new territory. You're hearing that a lot these days, but actually we're back in old territory, and you actually have a president who's referring to a time during the Gilded Age as a good time when wealth was created and enacting a policy to try to get us back to that kind of a time. I wanted to therefore at least give you one critical view of the current policy. All right, this is the current policy. This is in action right now. So I feel it's fair to provide you with a critical view. I could also give you a view of a president, I will later in the program, that might be more supportive of tariffs. But Grover Cleveland, the 22nd and 24th president, was not. And so he has three specific critiques that are very prescient and really apply to today. You're hearing them in today's debates. And I want to talk about just those specific complaints that Grover Cleveland has about a high tariff policy. Now, what else can we say? He spent his entire political career at the national level fighting against tariffs. That's 3 elections. He died in 1908. He had never, even as the volume of trade that America engaged in the world continued, as America's industries grew a lot in those 20 years since he had been defeated for his first reelection and made his tariff message, he never gave up on this policy. So he is a solid low tariff Democrat, as many Democrats in the 19th century would have been. And the main argument is exactly an argument that you're hearing today, that consumers have the right for low prices. But I want to talk about his December 1887 tariff message because, well, no one else is. And specifically 3 critiques that really are in today's debate. Now, he may use different language, but we're going to talk about them. One is that it doesn't just increase the price of imports, it increases the prices of American products, okay? So Buy American does not save you money when you institute tariffs. That's a criticism that you could make today and one that Grover Cleveland makes. That it's of only limited benefit to working men even in manufacturing industries because of those increased prices. And third, that they have a tendency to stubbornly stay long before their merited use. Even if tariffs are enacted with good intentions, this is a lot of the rhetoric you're hearing today, they have a tendency of staying power because of lobbying and interest. And we're going to get into those 3 arguments. So the key thing is that Grover Cleveland is elected president in 1884, a very tight election, mostly decided on personal issues, and it got nasty. And you're talking about an election decided by some thousands of votes in New York State. That's really what it is. Could have gone either way. Has a lot to do with personalities, insults, attacks, and things. We won't get into all of that. So Grover Cleveland becomes president. He'd like to have a reform agenda, but he's not really able to pass much of a lowering of tariffs, a lowering of high taxes on imports, which he would like during his term. Okay, so what does he do? He does what he can only do. And he tells the Congress, well, normally the president, this is in place of the State of the Union. Presidents in 1887 would not appear in front of Congress physically. They would write a letter, and that would be transmitted from the executive mansion over to the Congress, and it would be read. And it would also be in all the newspapers. And it is just like a State of the Union, the one thing it shares is, even if Grover Cleveland didn't appear in the flesh in front of Congress, it did highlight the nation's attention. And as you know, with a State of the Union, it's usually like 100 issues that the president's talking about. Imagine if a president just talked about one. And that's what happened in 1887. He decided to devote his entire message just to the tariff issue and advocate for reforming the tariff, even though his party did not have enough votes and there were not enough anti-tariff votes in Congress to ever change the policy. He ran his re-election in 1888 on this low tariff free trade issue, and he lost. It was close. In fact, he won the popular vote, but he lost that election. He never minded. There is principle or there is nothing. That's all he would tell friends. In his message, again, we're going to go to the 3 points that Grover Cleveland makes that really you could just apply to today. And this isn't like too much of, I mean, maybe it's a little. Oh, Bruce, you're getting into advocacy here. Yeah, I mean, maybe a little. I'm not pro-tariff, okay? But I also want to let you know that I understand some of the nuances as well. It's not simply Grover Cleveland said tariffs are bad, so tariffs are bad. Because you could pick another president, for instance, William McKinley, and he thought high tariffs were good. He thought protecting industries are good. There's a little nuance there. In that William McKinley is a reciprocal. He was a fan of reciprocal trading, so as soon as he enacts high tariffs during his administration, he's also meeting with France almost immediately with other countries and talking to them to get some of those reciprocal agreements going. So that's where McKinley, and to the extent that President Trump says that's what he's doing, then you're in line with that McKinley tariff. But Cleveland is something different. And I want to explain that, yes, his historical critique of tariffs actually does take in some of the nuances that we're talking about today. Like, look, this is just a negotiation. They're treating us unfairly. We're just trying to protect manufacturing in America and get jobs and things like that. Okay, so first, the benefit to the working man of tariffs. This is what Grover Cleveland says. The reduction of taxation demanded should be so measured as to not necessitate or justify either the loss of employment by the working man or the lessening of his wages, and the profit still remaining to the manufacturer after a necessary readjustment should furnish no excuse for the sacrifice of the interest of his employees, either in their opportunity to work or in the diminution of their compensation. Nor can the worker and manufacturers fail to understand that while a high tariff is claimed to be necessary to allow the payment of remunerative wages, it certainly results in a very large increase in the price of nearly all sorts of manufactures, which in almost countless forms he needs for the use of himself and family. And this is how Cleveland explains it. Benefit to the manufacturing worker. He receives at the desk of his employer his wages, and perhaps before he reaches his home is obliged, in a purchase for family use of an article which embraces his own labor, to return in the payment the increase in price which the tariff permits, the hard-earned compensation of many days of toil. So you get your pay, manufacturing worker, and then you're buying all sorts of things, which now this policy has made more expensive. That's why, he says, our present tariff law is vicious, inequitable, and a logical source of unnecessary taxation. Yeah, oh, by the way, Grover Cleveland hits it from the left and the right. He doesn't like that it's adding to a big government surplus either. Ought to at once be revised and amended. These laws, as their primary and plain effect, raise the price to consumers of all articles imported and subject to duty by precisely the sum paid for such duties. Thus, the amount of duty measures paid by those who purchase for these imported articles. Now, you'll hear this argument today that Grover Cleveland's getting to, but the tariff is just on imports. So don't buy your coffee from Hawaii. Don't buy your coffee from Ethiopia. Stop buying French wine. We have wine in California. Grover Cleveland addresses this back in 1887. Many of these things, however, are raised or manufactured in our own country, and the duties now levied upon foreign goods and products are called protection to these home manufacturers, because they render it possible for those of our people who are manufacturers to make these taxed articles and sell them for a price equal to that demanded for the imported goods that have paid custom duties. So it happens that while comparatively a few Americans use imported articles, okay, here he's talking about 1887, by the way. Few Americans use imported articles. I mean, there's a lot more of that activity today. Millions of our people who have never used and never saw any of the foreign products purchase and use things of the same kind made in this country and pay therefore nearly or quite the same enhanced price, which the duty adds to the imported articles. Those who buy imports pay the duty charged thereon into the public treasury. But the great majority of our citizens who buy domestic articles of the same class pay a sum at least approximately equal to this duty to the American manufacturer. Tariffs raise American prices. Buy American does not save you. Buy American wasn't a term in 1887, but this is what Grover Cleveland is saying. Not only does it not save you from a high price, but you're not contributing to the government treasury now even. It's going to the profit of the manufacturer. And this is Grover Cleveland's final coup de grace, if you will, on tariffs and why they're bad, because of the permanence of them and the politics of them, because of their connection to trust, which we do deal with on some things, particularly technology, but we have mechanisms to deal with and we don't want to see them in large numbers again. His warning.
Wow, this house is cute. But can I really get in the game in this economy? I do have savings, and I am responsible-ish. I should bury it. I'm being wild. But what if I'm not being wild, though? Could I actually score a...
Kick off your home buying journey with Zillow's new BuyAbility tool. It makes it easy to find out what you can afford, so you can get off the bench and onto the playing field with confidence. Check your BuyAbility, only on Zillow.
Now, first of all, Grover Cleveland, before we get to this third item, he's clear. It's not proposed to entirely relieve the country of tariffs. It must be extensively continued as the source of the government's income. And the interest of American labor should be considered. And the preservation of American manufacturing. Grover Cleveland recognizes all of this. It may be called protection or by any other name, but relief from the hardships and dangers of our present tariff laws should be devised with a special precaution against imperiling the existence of our manufacturing interests. But this existence should not mean a condition which, without regard to the public welfare or national exigency, must always ensure the realization of immense profits instead of moderately profitable returns. As the volume and diversity of our national activities increase, new recruits are added to those who desire a continuation of the advantages which they conceive the present system of tariff taxation directly affords them. So stubbornly have all efforts to reform the present condition been resisted by those of our fellow citizens thus engaged, that they can hardly complain of the suspicion, entertained to a certain extent. Okay, new recruits are added to those who desire a continuation of the advantages. What does that mean? Lobbying. The pressure of lobbying. Oh, just resist it. It's very difficult in Congress. Read John Boehner's book, the former Speaker of the House, and he talks about making this errant comment about the sugar lobby and about we really got to get rid of these sugar tariffs. Their prices are too high. He makes a comment in passing, in private, to a sugar lobbyist. And the reaction he got. The sugar lobby is already an example of a tariff lobby. And do you want those with each American industry? Grover Cleveland's prescient warning is we'll never get rid of these tariffs once it starts. And as I don't like to do this too much, but only because there's so much evidence in the writing of this man when he's making a speech for his re-election, essentially. Maybe the most important speech he feels he made in his life. I could say if he was sitting right here, he would tell you, do not enact high tariffs because you'll be stuck with them. It would be so difficult politically to get rid of them once you put them here. Who's going to do it? Who's going to be the lobbyist for free trade after this? You'll never get rid of them. So he's addressing arguments about it's just to build American manufacturers. He's addressing arguments about this is to help working men. He's addressing arguments about just buy American. And he's addressing arguments about this is temporary. It's just a negotiation kind of tactic. All those things envisioned by Grover Cleveland in his tariff message of 1887. So I posted a YouTube video of some of these points, and I want to address some of the criticisms. So, for instance, it's not 1887 anymore, Bruce. I get it. I really do. And look, history is a guide. It's not a total... That's why I didn't start this podcast with, Grover Cleveland said tariffs are bad. And leave it at that. Because there is some nuance. I do believe in what I've just said. He's addressing some nuances that you see today. So yes, we didn't have anywhere near the trade that we have in 1887. But to me, that just makes the stakes absolutely higher. And none of his warnings are wrong. None of his warnings are wrong. If anything, though, we've shed some problems that resulted from tariffs that people aren't seeing now. One is monopolies, or as he says, new recruits added to those who desire a continuation of the advantages which they conceive directly affords them in the present system of taxation. That's what he's talking about. And I don't think that changes. I think you'll have a group of people who are able to charge higher prices, and there'll be an effective lobby group that won't go away. That's a longer-term problem, but still one to be aware of. Another argument I got that, yes, Bruce, tariffs would be wrong if, say, President Trump were doing them to enlarge the size of the government or to make the country an isolated country. That's not what he's doing. This is art of the deal, man. He's trying to shake these other countries to get them to be fair with us. And my argument to that is, first of all, I heard a statement just on Sunday where actually the president did cite a number. I think it was 1.2 trillion or something that the tariff would bring in as a positive to the policy. So the administration is using that argument, funds to the Treasury, as one of the arguments. It's not just a side plan. And then secondly, to the other point, things would have to happen pretty quick for me to believe that it's just merely art of the deal. I realize there's a few countries, they're smaller countries, that honestly don't produce a lot of manufacturing that comes here already. And Argentina, Israel, things like that. India is a lot of service economy to America. The other argument is that in the administration's rhetoric that you're hearing, they're talking about improving manufacturing jobs in America. That implies a longer term, building factories here. That implies longer term. You can't have it both ways. In other words, if all the goal is to go around and get 0-0 deals, like you did with Argentina, say, are you helping the working man or not, right? Because if you're just going to go try to get everybody to get back to a globalist free trade position, but a more advantageous one, if this isn't going to have any real effect, if it's just a quick negotiation or something, well, you didn't really improve much if we're just going to get deals with everybody and allow it in. So I think that, and allow them to send their manufacturing product in, and at a reduced at a reduced tariff. So I don't get that. I think you have to believe it at face value, that it's a real policy with a real intention. And I would argue that there's been limited. I realize there was an election, but the election was about a lot of things. I seem to remember a man being too old for the presidency. I seem to remember McDonald's. I seem to remember a few other things. I don't know that this type of aggressive tariff policy was immediately known to all people pushing buttons, pulling levers, poking holes in ballots in November. I figure they probably assume this 10% or something, it's going to be a little increase on China or something. Well, I'll leave that there. I want to thank you for listening, and that's a little bit about the 22nd, 24th president on tariffs.